Then I'll go to karate.
Hello, brilliant soul. Welcome to Rainbows and Real Life edition of the PA System, the show dedicated to bringing positivity to the forefront, celebrating the power and promise of the human spirit, and supporting each other in challenging times. We believe when we join together, we all live better lives, and we're exploring ways we can do that in today's ever-changing world. I'm Pamela Aubrey, and I'm here with my rock star co-host, Christopher Rausch, out the side, the No Excuses Coach.
Right over there. What's up, Pamela? It's good to see you. How are you, darling?
So great to be here with you. It's been a minute since we've actually, well, except for the minutes before we got on here, but before that, since we've actually had a chance to chat.
Life goes by super quick. It's crazy how, it's already September. Can you believe it? Like, think about it. It's already September. It's like, I saw something the other day that said it's like 16 Saturdays until Christmas. And I was like, no. Except for the good plus of that is that the weather will cool down.
Yeah, seriously. Like we just ended like, I think 3 weeks of heat wave, like, between 95 and 105 degrees. And you guys have been super hot too, right?
It's been blasting hot here. It's been over 100 degrees for like the last probably 20 days. And the humidity, one thing here in Southern California is normally it's a dry heat, which people laugh at that. But honestly, dry heat is so much better than humidity. I'm like, I can't stand it. I cannot stand it. So we're supposed to get some thunderstorms, some tropical storm up from Mexico's coming up. So Saturday, we got a little bit of rain this morning. So we're supposed to get rain and wind, and it's going to be all sorts of crazy. But then it's supposed to start cooling down. So there's your weather report, ladies and gentlemen, from
for Southern California.
Yeah, Southern California. Back to you in the studio.
Sorry, I didn't have the map up for you.
Oh, they'll do the little green thing. Yeah, there we go.
And you just went on vacation, so that was good, though.
Hell yeah. Yeah, got some time away, went camping and enjoyed the moments, and rode our scooters and rode our bikes and ate bad food and drank alcohol and told stories and watched movies and campfires and marshmallows and all the good stuff.
You know what? I love camping. Like, I went on a little tiny getaway for a weekend, and I just went camping by myself because I was there by myself. And I was thinking, I was like, this is what I really miss about camping. It's just like the little things of like building a fire and making s'mores and roasting a hot dog. Like, it's so simple that you're just like, oh yeah, this is good. Right?
I could totally live like that. I get out there now and I've got so much stuff now. I'm blessed and we got an amazing house and everything, but I sit there and I think like simplicity, especially as you get older, you start recognizing you don't need all this stuff. And just the simplicity of having the bare essentials, just to like, you have your moments with your family and everything, and you have your moments with yourself. You can read a book, go out and enjoy nature. You don't need all the other stuff that we kind of surround ourselves with.
Yeah, for sure. And, it felt so good. Like, it really felt freeing. I was just kind of like, oh, it's just nice to like get away from everything and just chill and be out in nature. And I took my paddleboard out, and I paddled out on this lake and I just laid out on there on my board. And it was like, this is heaven right here.
Just got to do more of that. Just as long as you don't get eaten by bears, because you're kind of tiny, right?
Yeah. It's funny because you don't think about it until you actually kind of like get out there and you're like, oh yeah, this is what I've been missing. Right. Yep. And this kind of like segues a little bit into our topic, I think, today too, because I love this idea that, not just getting away, but like getting away from our busy lives, like letting ourselves step back out of the busyness can be kind of challenging, right? I don't know about you, but I feel like it's easy for me to just get caught up in the million and one things that I have to do.
Totally. No, the same thing for me. I think we sometimes get caught in our egoic brain and thinking about, I gotta do this, and I gotta do this, and I gotta do this. And when you catch yourself, at least for me, when I catch myself, I gotta do this and I gotta do this. It's like, do I really gotta do it, or is this something that it's a nice to or something like that? So it's kind of cool when you sit there and you go back and you establish what your priorities are, and you think, okay, can I let that go? And that's something, honestly, that I'm going through. I just was telling you this before we went on camera, that I'm doing this week. I'm taking a break from social media. I'm taking a break from anything that really doesn't serve moving the needle, and going back to some simplistic moments to where I could just really focus on what it is that I'm most passionate about, and kind of let go of some of that other stuff that I think sometimes we get caught up in, that we think we have to do. But in reality, if we don't do it, the world's not going to stop.
Yeah. And it's kind of funny. Not to say that we don't have, we do have busy lives. Like, there is a lot to do. We have responsibilities, we have kids, we have things, right? Yeah. But at the same time, it's like, but if we aren't really taking those moments, how much are we actually living? How much are we actually appreciating what's right in front of us? How much are we actually enjoying it, right? And just getting away for a few days was kind of, for me, it was like, oh yeah, I mean, I remember doing some of these things that I really enjoy doing that I haven't done for a while, you know, and it wasn't like a big deal. I mean, I was only gone for like 4 days, I guess. And it was really like one day of my own, you know, just by myself out in the woods and what have you. But at the same time, it was like, gosh, I haven't even done that in a few months. Right. And so, I mean, it's just, I think it's kind of challenging for me in a way to go, yeah, if I actually plan to do that, like if I actually, you know, set the intention and put it on my calendar to just do it, how much more often could I actually do it?
I always tell people that you always should have something on your calendar that you're looking forward to, because I even recognized this when I was out camping, and we go glamping. I mean, we have a 30-foot trailer with all the accoutrements and everything else. But I sat there and I thought, how long has it been since I've actually just been me, like just being instead of doing? Like, and I think something that everybody can take away from this conversation tonight is to like really make it intentional to be instead of always be doing. Because for me, I was like, what would it be like if I was just being, you know, and not always accomplishing, not always striving for the next thing? What would happen if I let things come to me as opposed to always being pursuing that next thing? And how much more relaxed could I be? Because I've seen many of my friends recently get to that point where like, okay, I got to do this and I got to do this, and they're burning themselves out. And I'm warning them because I did it myself. I had my adrenals crash twice in my life, where literally I thought I was invincible, and all of a sudden God source universe says, no, Chris, you're going to rest. You're going to rest. And so I'm seeing some of my friends go through this, and I'm like, you got to take time for yourself. You got to have some moments on your calendar where you're like, hey, you know, in every quarter or something like that, have something like get away for a couple of days, you know, go to the beach, you know, once a week or something, like go do something that makes you feel restorative, and let go of all that other stuff. Because think about how much more effective we can be when we reduce some of our stress levels and we get re-energized about what it is that we're doing. Because I know for me, you know, I do so much. I do 2 shows a week. I do your show once a month. I do Clubhouse every week. I do another Clubhouse. So I'm constantly doing and talking and everything else. And I got to the point where I'm like, am I really serving myself? So I think that's something that we really need to talk about, is the fact of identifying the fact that self-nourishment, that time to get away, that time to reflect, that time to journal, that time to reevaluate our priorities is super important. Otherwise we get caught up in the act of doing instead of being.
Yeah. So good. And that was one of the things when I was away that, and I think this is the value of kind of getting away too, that I sort of reconnected with. It was like, what are some of the things that really do serve me? You know, when I am in the midst of the busyness, you know, what can I go to? What are some of those things that I have used over the years that really kind of help me get back to that set point of, okay, yes, maybe I have a lot going on, but at the same time, it's manageable. And if I consistently am doing these things, then it's more manageable because I actually have that space for me too. And one of those for me was just going back to like a system, like sort of a systematic type of journaling that I was doing for a while. And that just, I mean, it's amazing how quickly that kind of reconnected me to that routine that I had had in the past that allowed me that space, which, you know, I had done like a modified version of it, and I do it in the mornings, but something about returning to that old version of doing it just automatically kind of gave me a reset, so to speak.
What is that like? I mean, what is this systematic journaling? Because that's something, quite honestly, that I've gotten away from. I used to journal quite a bit, and I just journaled yesterday for the first time in months, and it felt great.
Yeah. So, I mean, everybody's different, right? So what works for one person might not work for another. But for me, it's number one, and this is something actually you and I have talked about before, but it's talking about my gratitude. So right away, I'm writing down my gratitudes. What am I grateful for? But then also my wins. I'm celebrating my wins. And that's a really big one. Yeah, exactly. And it could be even though a win that I haven't actually had yet, right?
Ooh,
so
I like that.
Yeah. So I'm celebrating it in advance. And it's amazing when you do that, how often those wins will show up, right?
Yeah, actually, to your point, I need to do a much better job of that. Somebody was reminding me the other day, like, you know, manifest what it is that you want to see, like materialize it before it even happens. And sometimes I get caught up in the act of doing, okay, I got to do these things to get that. But just sitting there and simply reflecting, like manifesting a speaking opportunity or manifesting a new coaching client, and really seeing that kind of happen to fruition, because our minds don't know the difference between real reality and perceived reality, as evident by the fact that when we have a bad dream, what happens? We wake up and our body feels as though whatever happened in our mind actually truly happened. It's manifesting, and it's our our pulse rate and our sweating and everything else, but it never really happened. It was only something in our brain. So we can actually apply that same methodology in our lives to manifest positive things, to see that they've happened proactively. And I do that a lot of times with challenging situations. If I'm going to have a challenging conversation with somebody, I envision in my mind it going really well, and I can also see it going sour and how I'm going to respond versus react in those situations. And when I get in those situations, it's crazy. I'm like, here it is. I've already seen this in my mind. I know that I'm going to relax. I'm going to pause. I'm going to say, you know what? I can see this is a bad time for you. Let me come back at another time. We'll talk about this. I use that a lot in corporate because I would find myself in those tough situations, having those challenging conversations. But yeah, to your point, I mean, writing down those wins and celebrating those successes, because so often we spend time in the negativity. We spend time like, oh, that didn't go right, or this isn't going right, or we kind of get in that downward spiral. Even I get into that. So I think focusing on the positives is a tremendous idea.
Yeah, I really love it. And then also, like, I've been doing a modified version of 75 hard. So I've been going for a walk every morning. I love that. Like, that was really, really helpful for me. And I had never really thought about it because I wasn't a morning workout person. Like in the past, when I would go to the gym, I just hated it. I never felt like I really got that much out of it. And I just felt like it exhausted me. And for some reason, this time around, I was like, you know, I'm in this, I'm going to do it. I'm going to make it work. And so I just allowed myself to go for whatever walk I felt like my body could do. Right. So some days I was like, I'm going to mosey down the sidewalk this morning, you know,
your bathrobe and your coffee.
Yeah. and I wish I was a coffee. I mean, I wish I was like a morning person, but actually as part of the thing, I gave up coffee. So no coffee. Yeah. No caffeine. It was just like, get up, drink all my, you know, water and eat my fruit and then go for my walk. And so that was it. And it was amazing how, you know, as the days went by, I would have more and more energy for those morning walks. And it sort of became like this sacred time for me, because it was like, oh my gosh, I'm just like, this is just all about me and this 20 to 30 minutes that I have to walk. And now I'm kind of like, I don't think I ever want to give that up, you know?
Yeah. It's great. I mean, you get out and get some sunshine, you get some deep breathing in, you exhale that carbon monoxide out of your system, you sit there and focus on gratitude, and you start your day refreshed. I mean, I walk my son to school every single day, even today when it was raining, and I look forward to those moments. I look forward to looking up at the trees. I look forward to smiling and saying good morning to everybody. You know, it's just a great way to kickstart your day and then come back into the office and be like, okay, I'm ready to go, as opposed to getting up and going, okay, I got to do this and I got to do this, and starting your day off kind of like in an adverse situation. So I love the fact that you're doing that.
Yeah. And it's been a lot of fun too. And I've done it with a group, which makes it even more fun, right? Because we're like kind of accountable to each other. And there's all these other things that we're doing along with it. But I mean, just even the physical part of it, right, has been really, really good for me. And it kind of goes back to that idea of leadership, right? Your physical leadership and, you know, are you really owning it? And I think for me, that was an area where it was like, it was sort of time to step up my game. Like I was working out, but I just, like a lot of times my heart wasn't in it. So it wasn't necessarily a great experience for me. And so being like kind of thrust into this environment where it's like, okay, we're all in this and, you know, here's the deal. Here's what we're going to do. That was like the momentum that I needed to just sort of get me going. And so I think, you know, sometimes even that, like finding a group, right? Finding the right connections that can help us get into something. Maybe it's, you know, a workout routine, or maybe it's trying something fun and new. Like maybe it's going to a bar class or a dance class or, you know, martial arts, or, you know, just something totally different, but that we've been looking forward to trying and doing, that can kind of get us out of our funks or our routine, you know, and get us to kind of like tap back into ourselves too.
That's so true. I mean, breaking out of your routine is something that I've been struggling with lately. I've been feeling like it's been Groundhog Day because, you know, as an entrepreneur, a lot of times you spend time by yourself. You're in your office, you're grinding, you're maybe talking to clients and stuff like that. But you seem like, okay, I'm doing the same thing over and over again. And that's one thing I miss about being in corporate, was the day was always diverse and always different and changing and evolving. So I think it's important for us to recognize when we get in those ruts and kind of say, okay, what can I do to spice things up? Even so much to say, like, I'm going to go work in a different part of the house, or I'm going to go take my laptop and go to Starbucks. I'm not a Starbucks person, but I could easily go there and work. And it's like, Chris, why don't you? You have the total freedom. Sometimes I'll go to the beach. Sometimes I'll go to a library, and I'll just change my scenery, and it'll excite my senses, I guess, if you will, to think about things in a different manner, as opposed to coming here, sitting down, and got my computer, got my iPad, and and I got my dry erase boards. It's like, all right, you know, breaking out of the funk and kind of spicing things up, I think is important for us not to get in that stale situation where, that busyness will take over. And I think that, one of the most important aspects of that is our self-care. I've talked to so many people, I told you this before, so many people over the last couple of years during the pandemic. And I'm like, they're talking, oh, I'm worn out, I'm this, I'm that. I'm like, well, talk to me about, these 4 areas. How's your sleep? How's your hydration? How's your nutrition? And how's your exercise? Not even getting into spirituality or anything else. Like, oh yeah, I know I should drink more water. I'm not getting enough sleep. I don't have time to eat right, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, so your foundation, ladies and gentlemen, you're not taking care of that, but yet you're expecting, from a 1 to 10 scale, you're expecting 10 results, but you're not doing that for yourself and your body. So I think that's important to your point, is like readdress and redevelop what the priority really is, because without your personal health, then what are you really executing on? You're executing on subpar opportunities, and you're not getting the results that you want. And so that can also affect your mental state. So I think it's paramount that we focus on our mental and physical stuff. And that's what I'm doing right now, because I noticed that I started slipping into a cycle a little bit. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not feeling as charged as I was before. I'm not feeling as passionate as I was before. So readdress my priorities, make sure I'm taking care of my personal health and everything else. And I already do a pretty good job of it. But once you stop doing that, then you find out, oh, geez, I didn't realize how good I felt. And I just had a friend of mine just go through that. He had to go to a hospital for his asthma and everything else. And he's like, fuck, Grace. He goes, I feel better than I've ever had in like the last 3 years.
Oh,
just
wow.
by pausing. He had to go to the hospital, get his asthma taken care of. But now he's breathing clearer and he feels more energized than he ever has. And he's like, it was the best thing I could ever done.
Yeah. Yeah. And to listen to our bodies like that, it's interesting how our bodies will, like, they'll signal us, right? It's like, no, this isn't working for me and what have you. And we have, I think it's easy sort of in our culture. We have this tendency to just be like, I'll just keep going. I'm good. I'm going to, pull myself up by my bootstraps, what have you.
Yeah.
It's like,
grind it out.
Yeah. It's like, no, there's a reason why your body's doing that. I mean, even just a few days ago, like I said, I'm doing all this walking, and I was like, man, every time I stand up, I feel like I'm like 90 years old. What's going on? And so I thought, okay, I'm going to do this yoga stretch for my, this yoga routine for my hips. And I'm just going to stretch, So I did that. It was like this 20-minute thing. And I was like, good as new. Right.
Wow.
And it was like, just by listening to my body, then I was able to kind of adjust and do what it needed, and literally, I mean, it had taken me a few weeks. I just couldn't seem to get it through my head that no, Pam, you're not 80 years old. You just need to stretch, right? Listen to your body, right?
Especially as we get older too, we don't recognize that our brain still thinks we're 27, but our body, like I'm 53 now, and I have to recognize, even though I'm in great shape and everything, I'm not 27 anymore. So stretching is super important. You get your ligaments going, get the blood flow going, massage your extremities and things of that nature. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy what it is that we can do. But when I think about busyness, one of the questions I wanted to ask you, because I know that you're always on point. How do you prioritize your day? Do you have a specific methodology for making sure that you get like the biggest things done, so that you're not being super busy, as they say, working hard but not smart? What are some of your systems that you do for making sure that doesn't happen?
Yeah. So one of the things that I do is I look at my schedule the night before, right? So that I'm not waking up just going like, okay, got to dive in, not really sure what, the day is going to bring. I like to kind of have an idea of that before I get into the day. So that's a piece of it for me, for sure. And also that morning routine, like I was saying earlier, that's a big piece of it for me. Like I really have to have my morning routine, and I don't want to rush through it, because that's where I'm getting centered. So if I start the day out right, which most days, I mean, unless there's just something really funky going on, or like an emergency or something like that, I'm gonna do my morning routine. So that's a big deal for me, and that really centers me. So those two things together seem to work really well. Like I said, everybody's different. So, you may be that kind of person that's like, oh, I don't want to think about, what I'm going to do the next day right before I go to bed. And that's okay too. Maybe do it at the end of your work day, before you wind everything down. And sometimes I'll even maybe something's not on my calendar, but I want to remember it, or it's, I just want to make sure that I've addressed it by the end of the day. And I'll just jot some notes down, kind of a little bit of a brain dump, before I just completely shut the day off and sort of check out and read a book or whatever before I go to bed. And that's really helpful too, because I find that otherwise I will lay in bed and I'll think of 10 things, you know, that, and then I'm like, oh, I don't want to get up and write that down, but then I'm like, don't want to forget it, you know? So yeah, I mean, for me, that helps a lot to just like clear the brain out a little bit. And then I'm not wrestling with that stuff or even wrestling with it in my sleep. I mean, like I'll wake up during the night otherwise, and you know, be like, oh, that thing, I totally forgot,
Oh,
you know?
wow.
And I'm, yeah. And then I'm like, oh, I'm not getting out of bed to go write that down. Right. Like I'm just gonna never. So yeah. What about you? How do you do that?
Same thing. I literally have a stack of these. I buy them from Amazon. I get like a huge pack of them. And every single day, well, I shouldn't say every single day. That's an over exaggeration. Most days before I leave my office here is I write down what the top 3 needle movers are for the next day. So I've already got them planned in my brain. Okay, what's going to move the needle on my top priorities? And then I'll have other things that I have to do. Like I have to go get my truck oil changed. I have to go get the mail. I have to, go do something for my son's school, stuff like that. And so I get that out of my system. And then I make sure when I come in the first thing in the morning, I don't get distracted by something else. I didn't put down, check my email first. I didn't put down, check social media before I said, do this one thing. And although it's not always perfect because I got ADD and I sit there and go, well, let me just get this one thing done. And then sometimes I get to the end of the day, I'm like, fuck, I didn't even get to my first thing. Sometimes I will take a piece of paper and I will just cover everything else. So then it's just like the fact that it's just the one thing, Chris, just get that one thing done. Yeah. I used to put like 5 things. Now I put 3. And so I make sure I do that. And, as far as remembering stuff, I use my watch. I have an Apple Watch. Wasn't really big on getting one, but I use it just for the simple factor. I use my phone now and I just say, hey, Siri, set a reminder for 6 a.m. tomorrow morning to remember to call Pam. And I'm surprised it didn't actually do it. Because sometimes when I do a test like that, so I use that, or I have a record. I have a record feature on my phone. It's like one record. So I literally press it. I'll do that. It can transcribe that note. I can come into my office the next day and pull that thing up and sit there and say, okay, I didn't have to remember it in my brain. So yeah, but I think to your point also that morning ritual is so important. I mean, there's a great book out there called The 5 a.m. Club by Robin Sharma. And I read it. It's an orange book. I have it up there. And when I started researching what successful people do, inevitably all of them have a specific morning routine. So it's something I ask all my successful people on my shows is like, what's your morning routine consist of? And invariably they all have something. They usually spend the first hour of the day either getting some sort of exercise, doing some sort of personal development, some sort of journaling, meditating, whatever it might be, because once you own that hour for yourself, you're again setting that establishment for what the rest of the day is going to bring. But so many people sit there and they wake up and they do what? Oh, the news. Oh, the emails. Oh shit, today's gonna suck. Right. Oh fuck, everything's going to hell in a handbasket. Okay, let me go be productive. So it's like, no. And I've sometimes got in a bad habit of doing that again. Like recently, I'll sit there and start glazing over news headlines and stuff like that. I'm like, God, Chris, why do you do that? Why? It's not serving you any purpose. It's not. So I think for, sometimes we have to go through those opportunities to kind of readdress what our priorities are. But now my priority is always getting up in the morning, spending time with my son, walking him to school, getting that exercise, coming back, taking care of any chores that I got downstairs. So that's not weighing on my mind. And then coming up here and executing on my goals. I usually don't schedule anything. I'm huge about scheduling. So like on Mondays and Fridays, Monday's my planning day, my execution day. Fridays, I try to keep for myself and for personal things that I want to do. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday are like really my knee-deep days working with coaching clients, executing on needle movers and things of that nature so that I know I have something to look forward to and that I can leave the weekends for family time. It's not always perfect, but at least that way I know that my structure is, okay, when it's Tuesday, I'm in game mode. Let's go, let's execute, let's get shit done. Mondays, it's like, okay, I'm gonna get everything planned out. And then Fridays, like if I want to do something personal or I want to do something business related, I can, and have some fun and like talk to people and stuff like that.
Yeah. And I don't know if you're like me, but I sort of love having that at the end of the week to look forward to and just kind of knowing like, like today is my coffee day, I'm going out with my friend or, on that day I'm going to this networking event or, whatever the case may be. And so it's kind of like, okay, yeah, I'm excited to do that. I'm excited to do this, future thing. And it gives you a little bit of momentum.
It does. That's why I always say, always have something on your calendar, especially something personal. I try to do it at least once a quarter, if not twice a year, like something that I'm really super excited about, whether it's a camping trip or going down to the beach, just like something, because that way you're not sitting there looking like, oh, I have all this shit to do, as opposed to like really getting to enjoy your life. And I think that it's one thing I used to do with my coaching clients, and I do it periodically, is like do this like wheel of life. And we sit there and we wait. It's a spreadsheet that I have, and we wait out how much time we spend in certain areas of our life. And like the personal area is always the last. Like I can't remember the last time I turned on my PlayStation and played a game. So something in my brain tells me like, Chris, you actually should do that. It's like, make that a priority to do that, because once you do that, you're going to go, oh man, I missed this. And a couple hours fly by and you're like, wow, it wasn't that I was fucking off. It was like I was actually enjoying myself, and now I'm re-energized to go back to do the things that I want to do. And I think sometimes, so many times we sit there and we think that we have to grind it out. We have to have this social validation that we're doing stuff, when actually it's important just to be.
Yeah. I mean, it almost makes you wonder, like, what did we do before we had social media or social validation? I mean, it was like, did we have fun? Did we go do things that we enjoyed? Yeah, we did all those things, and we enjoyed them just as much, if not more, as we do now. Right. So it's like, yeah, sure, there's some pluses to social media, but sometimes just totally disengaging, like what you're doing right now, I think is super valuable. And, it gives us that space to just like enjoy our lives a little bit and not have to be kind of like reporting in almost. Right?
It's true, but I feel guilty. It's crazy. I actually feel guilty. Like, I started scrolling today for like a second, and I saw somebody's post, and I saw that they were going through an adoption process. And I'm like, if I didn't scroll, I wouldn't have seen that. I wouldn't have been able to support them in that. So I feel guilty sometimes, because I love to serve, but at the same time, I serve way too much. So I'm trying to back off of that and not have that guilty feeling, because I shouldn't say I've always, but I identified later on in life that I never felt I could relax until I earned the right to relax. And it's like, Chris, you have the right to relax and to have fun any particular time that you want. If you miss something, you miss it. If it's supposed to be there, if you're supposed to know about it, it'll be there. So I'm realizing this is a good opportunity for me to really kind of step back and reevaluate that, and like identify some things in myself, like, what is it you're doing that for? And that's some of the things that we talk about here on the show, is like doing that deeper dive into the root cause of some of the things that we do, where sometimes we're looking at the symptoms of things that we do, but we don't really pause to take that time to reflect. And until it's too late, or until we hit bottom, and then it's like God's source universe says, hey, by the way, you need to reflect on these things right now. I'm going to give you this opportunity. I'm going to give you an illness. I'm going to give you something that's going to go on in your life where you're going to have that time to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And Samuel says, I had a busy moment this evening. Yeah, it happens, right? We have busy moments for sure. And
What's up, Samuel?
Yeah, when we do, I mean, it's okay to step back, right? Like, it's okay to go, well, you know what? I'm going to have to take this moment. I'm going to have to disengage for a little while. And I know for me, just, doing that, like stepping back, has been very helpful in a lot of different areas of my life, because I think, social media is a good example of this. It's easy to get busy around social media, right? And like kind of get sucked in. You spent, an hour on there instead of like 5 minutes. And then all of a sudden you're like, okay, that was an hour. Oh my gosh. And I had all these other things I needed to do. Right. So kind of like keeping it in perspective, like you were saying, can be really helpful, because it will suck up time that you don't have maybe to give to it. And then it's taking away from other things that maybe were more important, and probably were. I mean, I don't want to say that it's not important to like engage with people and be connected. But, setting the time to do that and being purposeful about it is one thing, versus like getting sucked into the scroll and just going and going and going.
Yeah, that's why I like timers. I used to do what was it called? The Pompadero method or something like that, where it's like 40 minutes on, 10 minutes off or something like that. So I would actually set timers on my phone and be like, okay, I'm going to be very intentional. I'm going to work for 40 minutes. And then if I want to go check social media for 10 minutes, then I can go do that and then get right back on track. And it's helped me quite a bit this week. I'm not checking social media. I've got so much more done on my book. It's incredible. Like literally, it's like, Chris, you don't need to I would spend an hour like doing posts and engaging and, trying to help the algorithm and going on Instagram and doing that and doing all that stuff. And all of a sudden it was like, oh, then I would do this and that. Then I would have an hour to spend on my book. And now, I've been spending like 4 hours at a time on the book. It's like, the rest is still going to be there. So I think it's really about that intentionality of what priorities we're setting, and kind of getting real with ourselves as to why we do those things, and being able to have that self-reflective time and have mentors and people in our life where we can bounce those things off of, and just sit there and talk about those things. I know I have some amazing people in my life, including yourself, who can help me stay grounded in those situations and those perspectives, and to be able to have those honest and vulnerable conversations with people is invaluable to kind of get your reset in your mind of who it is you're really serving. Are you serving yourself, or are you serving something else?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, super important. And when I look back at my life, I mean, the people that, have been my mentors, who have really been there for me, like really truly invested in me and been like, reach out anytime, people that, gosh, people pay, lots and lots of money to connect to. And, they're just like, if you need anything, I'm here. I mean, you just can't put a price tag on that. right? And just to be able to go to someone like that, if you need to, is something you just can't replace. Speaking of people that you can't replace, look who's here.
Look who's here. What's up, Samuel?
Welcome to the show.
Well, hey guys.
Welcome to the conversation.
Yeah,
we're talking about fad diets and no, I'm just kidding. We're talking about how to not stay busy, like make sure we're staying purposeful in the things that we're accomplishing. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it was funny. Pam and I talked to Pam earlier today about coming on here tonight and talking about, being busy, because I just I just wrote a book about it, about going from busy to business and how busy work sucks us, away from what we're supposed to be doing. And I was supposed to be on here at like 7:00 tonight, and the busy got the best of me. So it's like, it can happen to anybody, even someone who's wrote about it. So that just goes to show that it's like, the struggle is real, right? When it comes to like the busy stuff, like literally I was working with, working on the funnel and stuff like that. And ClickFunnels just took a dump, and I was like, okay, that's nice. Wasn't expecting that to happen. Matter of fact, I don't even think I've ever had that technical difficulty with ClickFunnels before, for my page to just vanish, so.
Oh, wow.
Which, it's kind of interesting because, in a moment like that, especially today, we're so tech savvy, right? Here I am, I'm thinking I'm in the backstage of StreamYard, and Pam's like, "You're not in." I'm like, "What do you mean I'm not in?" So it's like, all these little things can add up, and, when they just compound like that, I would say the best thing you can do is like what I did, take some deep breaths.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing what 3 deep breaths will do in a stressful situation when you realize like you just got sidetracked by some busy stuff that shouldn't have really grabbed your attention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we tend to want to solve things. We tend to want to go out there and like, oh, let me just spend a minute to solve this thing, and then we get so wrapped in and we get this sunk cost bias kind of thing, like, oh, now I have to solve it.
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys if you ever experienced that, but I get in that situation and I'll spend hours and hours when I could have actually asked somebody who was an expert to figure it out for me.
Yeah.
Oh, me and ClickFunnels are going to have a good conversation after this call tonight. I might even switch over to Sam Cart, just be like, done with you,
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, for most of us, we're working jobs, right? Like most people have a day job. It's not just their, or they've got a business they're running, right? Which is just as much work as the day job. And so anything additional that you're putting on top of it, you're like, okay, I'm going to manage it, right? But it does get busy. Like, I don't know that having a business by any stretch is less busy than working a day job and trying to start a business. I mean, it's just all the way around. It's a lot of stuff to do.
Yeah. I really like that because, I've got a day job that I do, and I separate that. Like, I want to make sure I'm doing that when I'm there, and then when I'm not there, I'm working on my business, because I really feel like, and this kind of came across the other day. I was thinking about this, like, if more people that have jobs, maybe they just have a limited, number of income sources. If they actually started a business, just the tax implications alone of showing a loss would allow them to actually save a lot on their taxes by just starting a business. And that got me thinking, like, wow, if you look back on the last 100 years, a lot of people had all kinds of side businesses. Even before there was like a tax code, people had multiple streams of income coming into their families, even though more of them probably lived under one roof back then. Today, I think our country's gotten away from that so much that people really need that extra stream of income, even if it's just an extra few $1,000 a month that they make doing something. They really need to be able to start a business and see the value in doing that, even though we all know here that we've all been programmed to get a good education and just go get a job. And like, that's the last thought most people put in it. And they're like, hey, weekends are mine, I'm just going to go goof off till next week and dread Mondays. And it's like, our whole society has gone down that road for like over 100 years. And it's like, I really feel like we can change it by showing people how to start a business, look at like how simple it can be. And then, also share the real struggles with, trying to set it up on social media and get the things out there that you need to get out there. Like for right now, I put together a manifesto that I'm going to give away to people. And I was literally hoping to have that link ready for you guys. I was going to share it with you tonight and be like, hey, yeah, go check it out. But my page decided to take a dump. And that happens, that happens.
Yeah.
I'll have it up before the end of the night. But, it's a pretty simple thing where it just takes you through a conversation of like, okay, maybe I do have a job and maybe I do want to start a business. What does that look like for me? Because I really don't feel like anybody's really serving that space of like,
Mm.
I've got a job, my spouse has got a job, and we've never even thought about starting a business. But if we did, maybe we could buy that new car, or maybe we could upgrade the house. It doesn't have to be like, I'm going to make millions of dollars. Like, that doesn't need to be the reason you do it, right? So I really feel like, writing something about that to really help somebody get there, from somebody who's worked for themselves for a long time, would be something that would be really valuable to, like, the American family. Like, I'm not even talking about the world here. I'm just talking about, like, here in this country, something that might make people's lives better here. And I just know from doing it myself for so long that it's easy to get distracted. There's so much going on today, and if you can't focus on what really matters, at least see what really matters, then you don't even have a shot. Which is why 95% of businesses fail in the first year or two.
Yeah,
because they start out and they just go right to the busy category, and they never really start doing business, more or less serving anybody, right? Which is kind of the reason for starting it, right? So, yeah, that's what I got on that. So, what do y'all think about that as far as it relates to, like, the American family and them, starting a business?
I think it's great points. I mean, you obviously ran a business for a number of years, and so you've experienced it firsthand. But I mean, I know a lot of people, and I know this was my experience as a young adult too, having owned a business with my ex-husband, that there was very little time for, like, us personally and for our family. I mean, totally put on the back burner for all those years. And yeah, I mean, inevitably, in some senses, you make those choices along the way, obviously, of what you're going to prioritize. But, at the same time, there is a lot to do when you're running a business, and learning to separate the busy from the business is a huge piece of that. And, it's tough. I think it's easier maybe now than it's ever been in some senses, because we have more information than we've ever had. We have more resources than we've ever had. And we have access to people who have gone through these sorts of things that we're talking about and have experience. They've lived it, they've learned all the lessons, right? And so that 10 or 20 or 30 or $100,000 lesson that person learned, you might be able to get the benefit of for, $1,000. Like, we're in a different day and age than we were even 10 years ago. And so the opportunities in that sense, I mean, according to what we're talking about and what you're saying here, to me, it seems so obvious. Like, we have opportunities like we've never had, and we don't have to make the sacrifices like we maybe have in past generations, because of the resources that we have available to us.
It's so true. I mean, when you think about Google and YouTube, like, if you want to get an answer to something, what's the first thing you go do? You go search it and you figure it out. I mean, there's the amount of information that we have access to, just to be able to sit there and say, okay, how do I add a multiple stream of income? I just had a friend of mine. She created an Amazon business. She ordered stuff from China and she's reselling it on Amazon, and she's making a couple of grand a month. And she just went. She goes, all I did, Chris, is I went in, I Googled how to start an LLC. She did the LLC on her own because she found all the information on YouTube and Google. And then from that point, she created this Amazon business, and she's selling out these things that she actually likes to buy and actually likes to package and sell. And she's doing this little side business. And she goes, Chris, I can sit there and envision, if I invest more money in this, I can actually replace my day job income with this and be able to do other things in my life and be able to do some philanthropic work. So I think, to your point, it's just a matter of us taking responsibility to go out there and take that initiative to sit there and say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to start investing my time and my energy. And if it's a family business, to your point, Samuel, I think that's an awesome opportunity, especially if we have kids, to be able to kind of develop that entrepreneur leadership. I know my son's 5 years old, and I definitely want to start teaching him about that stuff, that the access to that, to be able to do it as a family, is something that we can do together. But at the same time, being able to say, okay, at 5 o'clock, the family business is over, and then we're just the family. And because I've talked to so many people who have had family businesses, and I'm like, how do you separate that stuff? Because I've seen marriages dissolve because they didn't know how to separate it. So it's important, I think, in that aspect, is to make sure that there's clear delineation and boundaries to say, okay, here's who we are in the business, but here's who we are, and make time to be the couple and everything else. And I think that's, to your point, Pam, that sometimes we can get lost in that, and then we carry that over, and then we start taking things personally, and it becomes more about the business than our relationship. And unless we catch that stuff, then people can ultimately end up in divorce.
Yeah, and I think those are really important discussions to have, because, I mean, let's just be real. One partner may have one expectation and another partner may have another. And for one person, they may be able to just work the business all the time and leave all the other stuff behind. And for the other person, they may feel very left behind, right? So yeah, I mean, to have those conversations in advance so that you know that you're on the same page, you know, can make a huge difference as well. And especially if it's not something you're doing together even, right? Because that could create even more of a separation. So yeah, I think that's a really important point. Samuel, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I love what you said. You know, it really boils down to, like, and I like to just try to take things down as simple as possible. And, you know, every single problem out there that needs to be solved, like, you'd be amazed at some of the silly stuff people have turned into a business. But like you said, they were passionate about solving that problem for whoever. And they're just like, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to create a solution for that. I'm going to sell it. And that's exactly all a business is. It's just find a problem you're passionate about solving and then structure it into a business and go. Like, that right there is like the reason why you do it. And, you know, if you've got a real good reason why you're going to do something, like run a business, because it's chaotic, it's crazy, it can be nuts, especially when you got build funnels. You know, it'll get under your skin sometimes, but, you know, you can always just look back and remember, like, why am I doing this? And when you really fall in love with why you're doing it, and you write, when you write your business thing out, like, it's like, okay, I solved this problem for these people doing this thing, and here's why. That needs to be like the biggest piece of the paragraph. Like, just fill that page up with why. And you'll never quit, because, like, to what Pam said, it is extra work. It is a lot of extra, you know, you got to go the extra mile all the time. And it's just something that you've got to have a good reason why to do it, or you're going to give up and quit and be like, I don't really care about serving those people. But at the end of the day, that's really all a business is. It's solving a problem for somebody with a solution that you came up with. It might be unique to you, and making it available. It's as simple as that. And when you look at it from that simple framework, it's no longer like this overwhelming, got to go to the lawyer and like all this kind of stuff, you know, people think it is. You know, they think starting a business is like this crazy mountain they got to climb. And in reality, like, you can create an LLC in 30 minutes. I mean, it's not that difficult to do. But if you don't know that you need to do that, you know, if you don't have like a simple framework laid out, and that's kind of what I wrote into that manifesto. I just wanted to give people, like, here's a simple framework. You got a great problem you want to solve? Great. Write it down right here. And then I help them write that statement. And then I show them some of the basic things they need. And then we talk about business, which is the second piece, which is really, can you create desire for what you have? Can you have a conversation with someone so that you can let them know you got it, and then make an invitation for them to buy it? And then can you collect the money? I mean, that's really all business boils down to, is those three things. Mm-hmm. And then you have customers, and that's the third piece. Will you, if you have a big enough why as to why you're doing this for them, you'll approach your customers not just from like, okay, I sold them something, now I got to deliver something to them. You'll approach it totally different. And I suggested in my manifesto, I was like, why don't you bestow on people? Why don't you put your customers into a place of honor that they even bought from you? Like, that changes the whole game in business. I will tell you, like, for 2 decades in business, I never looked at my customers like that. Not with that much intention of just like, you know what, how can I blow these people's minds? Like, they bought from me, they hired me, like, I really want to deliver. Now, honestly, I will tell you this, remodeling kitchens for 25 years, I did want it. I mean, my work looked amazing. They told me that all the time, because I did put in the extra work to make sure it was freaking awesome. And, you know, it kind of turned me into a little bit of a perfectionist for a while there, where I was just like, yep, my stuff don't stink. I know it's right. You know, I got like this big chip on my shoulder. But then again, it was because I was trained that way. I was trained to just do it well. And not everybody is. And, you know, now that I'm like managing some people that are doing that work today, you know, I have to look at it like, okay, wait a minute. And, you know, there's no perfect miter cut or any of that stuff. Like, you know, people think like, oh, there's perfect woodwork. No, I can find something wrong with all of it. Believe me, if you look close enough, no matter how polished the diamond is, there's a flaw in it somewhere, right? So really, it just boiled down to getting to a place where, you know, you're not looking at, you know, how perfect you can do something or how awesome you can do something, but you're just really looking at, why am I doing this for them? And can I just put them in a place of honor to where now I'm actually going to really show up for them in ways that I've never done before? And like, for someone that's been in business for maybe 10 or 12 years or a decade or two, have they ever thought about their customers like that?
Mm-hmm. No,
I could probably walk into any business and say, hey, have you ever bestowed on your customer? Have you ever put your customer in a place of honor? And they're going to look at you like a deer in headlights. I mean, think
so
about
important.
how.
I mean, that's what sets you up above all the rest is like how you can be, everybody can do a widget, but it's how you deliver that widget and that connection that you make with the people with that widget that's so important. I mean, that's one of the things we're going through right now. We're getting solar for our house. And the biggest thing I'm looking for is solar. It's going to replace electricity. What's the service on the back end going to be like? What's going to be like when I have a problem? So I'm like talking to these people and developing relationships with them to say, what's your customer service like? What's your customer mentality about? Is it just in fact like, oh, once you sell them, then they just become a number? Talk to me about that process. Talk to me about, some of the ways that you responded to your Better Business Bureau complaints. And so I'm getting into those weeds, trying to figure out, okay, who's got the best integrity with their product? Because at the end of the day, the product's all the same. It's to the point of, like you said, what's your why and how deeply developed are you in your why? And also your team's developed into that why.
Absolutely. Definitely got to bring the team dynamic into that as well, because like if you're running a team as the leader of the team, it's your job to cast that vision of like, hey, we're going to treat our customers like this. We're going to put them in a place of honor. And it's the leader of the team's job to make sure everybody on that team understands what that is. Mm-hmm. And it's not just that, it's anything you're doing in business. If you're leading a team, it's your job to tell them like, hey, here's the big picture of what we're doing. Bring them all together, and I touch a little bit on that in that manifesto about the team building thing, because it is so important, because a lot of companies, maybe they get the team piece down, but they don't know how to make the sales. They don't know how to make the conversation. They don't know how to make the connection. Right. And then other companies can make the connection. They can make the sales, but they don't put their people in a place of honor, and they don't know how to run a team. So it's like, if you're missing one of those two pieces, you're kind of in the gutter. So I felt like it was important to combine both of those and be like, look, at least look at these two things. And from that place, at least now you're aware that you need to have both of these rocking and rolling. And to something Pam said about the family dynamic, this is something I learned from one of my coaches, and this is huge, because I definitely, I ran this one way off the rails a few years ago. When it comes down to your family and your business life, it all has to be intentional, right? Like you have to plan it all. It all has to be like a cohesive unit. Like you have to work on your marriage at the same time you're working on your business, at the same time you're working on your physical health, and the same time that you're like, your prayer time or whatever time you're spending, off doing your meditating or praying. All of that has to happen at the same time. And it's a process you have to learn, right? And a lot of people do really good at usually one or maybe two of those. Most people out of those four are doing good at one. Very few people have all four of them on fire at any given time.
So true.
And when I started learning about those four, I was like, wow, like you have to do all four of these at the same time. Like, really? And it was like, but then I saw a framework for how to do it. And I was like, oh, it's possible. And it is a lot of work. And I will tell you this, to the conversation y'all are having, even in that conversation about trying to figure that out, you can get stuck off into busy. You'll fall off into one domain there, just be stuck there for a while trying to figure it out. And maybe you end up in your journal for 2 hours in that one thing, and then you come back out of it, and then you realize you got some catching up to do. So it's totally a work in progress, right?
I love that. I mean, I talk about it like being a wheel. We talk about the balance of the wheel. A wobbly wheel will go down the road, but it'll knock your teeth loose at the same time. So having some of that balance going down that road is super important, and you got to make it a priority. That's one of the things I like about what you're saying, Samuel, is the fact of being very intentional about that and making it a priority and having those boundaries in place to become successful and to be able to have that long standing versus something that's short term that you're going to have to deal with down the road. So, I mean, I think it's a brilliant discussion that we're having, and hopefully the people, you guys at home, are taking notes of all of this, and let us know what it is that you guys do at home, and in the comments, whether you guys watching or listening on the replay, what it is that you guys do to find that balance in your life to make sure that you're staying busy, but you're staying productive and intentional and on purpose and on point with the things that you're doing, to make sure that we're all winning this life and having a kick-ass time doing it as well.
Yeah, and I just want to add to that going back to kind of what you were saying, Samuel, I feel like we sort of can rotate sometimes through these different areas too. Like maybe we're a little bit more focused on one for a little while and then a little bit more focused on another. And that's okay. Like, I mean, I think it's okay for us to, if we're keeping them all in front of us, but maybe we have to focus on one or another, primarily for a season, that's okay. But just to kind of keep in mind that, we want to try to stay as balanced as we can and just sort of have those, in front of us on a regular basis. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about with with what you're doing and what you're helping others to do is just to have an awareness around some of these things and to be able in a structure, because I mean, it's about intention, but it's also about a structure for it. And so to be able to approach that in a way that it's constructive for us, for our business, for those we're serving, and for our families all at the same time.
Amen. Amen, sister.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. Like, you have to have it in front of you, but things are going to ebb and flow, right? Like, you're going to spend more time here, and then you're going to be a little more time over there. But as long as you take the time, at least weekly is a good goal to shoot for. Step back once a week and just look at the big picture. Yeah. How did I do in these 4 areas last week? Because if you'll do that, you'll realize that, like, did kind of neglect the spouse last week, or I didn't do all my workouts last week, and be honest with yourself, and don't beat yourself up, because very few people are going to just be on fire in all 4 of those areas at the same time. But as far as I like what you said though. Keep an eye on the big picture, zoom out, because you got to and this is something that was crazy for me when I first started hearing, I think it was Gary Vee kept saying macro, micro, macro, micro. And I'm like, a few years ago when I first heard him talking about that, I'm like, what is he talking about? And then, it's obviously, the macro big picture, right? Look at that once a week. And then each day, just hit a micro thing, and you'll get 4 major things, 5 major steps done each week. And then you can look at that macro picture again. And what you'll see is, those little bitty steps you're taking week by week by week is, you look back 3 months later and you're like, wow,
compound interest, baby.
Exactly. Like, I've gone more than most folks are going to go in the whole year, and I've done it in 90 days because, I got focused on that. So
love it.
But you don't have to, the thing I love about that is you don't have to hit a home run every time you get up to the plate.
True.
You just got to swing the bat, at least try to hit the ball. Put some effort in, right?
If you don't swing, right?
At least try to bunt or something,
Well, I know the 3 of us could talk about this probably all night long. We're just getting started, but I know we're gonna have to wrap because we're getting close to the end of our time. But do you guys have any closing thoughts, starting with you, Christopher?
Closing thoughts, I would just sit there and say, from this conversation tonight, take down your piece of paper and your pen and write down 3 intentional actions that you can take from this conversation. Start putting them into play and ask yourself, what is it that I can start taking responsibility for and accountability for in my life today, and start taking that taking that point, because to your point, Samuel, that over and over a period of time, that compound interest will lead to an ultimate destination. And that's what we want for you guys. That's why we do the show. So definitely take those points of action, go talk to them with your spouse and your family and your mentors, and ask for accountability partners, and make sure you're taking that intentional action. You got your why framed out, and then get to work on it.
Love that.
Yeah. And I'll just leave with, for anybody watching the replay, because by the time you see this, you'll know that the website's up. But you can go to FromBusyToBusiness.com and get my free manifestos, the book I just wrote about going from busy to business. And if you're starting a business, it'll be helpful to you. And if you got a business, it'll still be helpful to you, because I put a lot of really good, valuable stuff in there. And I'm absolutely cannot believe I'm making it free, but I just felt like, it needs to happen, because I know a lot of folks that would normally never entertain the idea of starting a business might read this and be like, we could do this, so that's one of the whys of why I'm putting it out there. So it's from busytobusiness.com. That site will be up hopefully by the time you see this, if you're watching a replay.
Awesome. Thank you, Samuel.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, man.
And thank you to all of you that are out there listening or watching, or both, wherever you are. We appreciate you. We appreciate you being with us and the opportunity to share this information with you. It's always so much fun to be here and have the conversations on our end, but we love to hear from you too. So please join us live whenever you can. Hop on, offer your thoughts, ask your questions. We would love to converse with you as well. And if you got something out of this, please share it out, or hop on over to YouTube and subscribe. Then you can get more of this kind of content. And we try to serve you guys, wholeheartedly, give you as much good information as we can from our own lives, our own experiences, and just, like we were talking about earlier, really honor you in your life and your journey. So lots of love and light going out to all of you. And we look forward to seeing you again next time. Good night, everyone.
Love you guys.
See ya.